By the time you're ready to jump on a trend, everyone else is too. If you're looking for a way to show a bit of personality, capitalize on a moment in time, show your customers or candidates that you get them, and stand out from the competition, there's probably a better, more difficult, but also more effective way. The trend cycle now is so rapid that by the time you hop on board, you're likely already late to the party.
Initiating becoming a hiring machine sequence in 3, 2, 1.
Hey everyone, I am Lex Winship and welcome to Becoming a Hiring Machine. This is a show dedicated to fixing recruitment by going beyond saying what needs to change and instead teaching you how to make the change. Today, we have an amazing Tactical Tuesday episode hosted by yours truly. But before we get into that, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the show. Essentially, we have shows within the show. Sometimes we have interviews with industry leaders and others who are shaking up the space, and we'll teach you how to do something that they do that's helped them be successful. Sometimes we cover trending topics, items that recruiters are talking about or will be very soon, and breaking down what those topics mean to them. Every Tuesday, we drop a Tactical Tuesday episode like this one, where we go deep on how to do something that will help drive better results in your day-to-day. Sometimes we open up our episodes for a Q&A where listeners can drop in questions that they'd like to hear us take on. You can submit questions that you would like us to take on to podcast@loxo.co. Lastly, occasionally you'll hear some of our favorite episodes, mic drops from our founder, Matt, where he shares something that's been bouncing around in his head and something about the recruitment space that he thinks that you need to know. As a reminder, if you like the content that we share here on the show, subscribe for more. So today, like I said, this is a Tactical Tuesday episode, and I, Lex, am generally not the host of a Tactical Tuesday episode. Usually you'll hear from me on trending topics episodes. So today's Tactical Tuesday is going to be a bit of a hybrid of a Tactical Tuesday and a trending topics episode because we are going to be talking about trends. Trends and trend-based marketing have become really dominant in the marketing world in the past couple of years. The digital landscape has become extremely noisy, and trend-based marketing has become the dominant organic approach. Brands have been investing more of their social budget on organic social media specifically, and as we've seen TikTok become one of the biggest social medias in our market, we're starting to see this idea of jumping on trends and replicating trends become more and more common. So for recruiters or agencies who are looking to establish or build a brand, there is this temptation to kind of lean into the cultural moment to do so. And I completely get that. As someone who spends all of her time in the brand and content space, I see a lot of this playing out across different industries. And I've started to kind of think through what this really means and what this looks like at scale. And I have a couple of concerns that I want to just share to any recruiters who are looking to kind of build either their own brand, establish an employer brand that they're using to attract clients or attract candidates, and then also just for agencies that are, whether they have a brand already, or trying to kind of build and establish that even further. There's some risks and some challenges that I want to bring to your attention when it comes to this trend-based marketing trend and start to analyze that a little bit. So the first thing that I want to kind of keep in mind is the fact that by the time you're ready to jump on a trend, everyone else is too. If you're looking for a way to show a bit of personality, capitalize on a moment in time, show your customers or candidates that you get them, and stand out from the competition, there's probably a better, more difficult, but also more effective way. The trend cycle now is so rapid that by the time you hop on board, you're likely already late to the party. Listen, I am all about bias to action, but trend-based marketing feels like a lazy way to do. I'm saying this to myself just as much as I am to you because as marketers, there's definitely this mentality that we need to jump aboard every trend or get left behind. When in reality, I think that pursuing a viral moment rather than building a lasting relationship is kind of missing the point. So that's kind of my fear here is we're leaning more into these short-term wins rather than maintaining a focus on the long-term strategy. So I totally get it. There's this clear appetite to reach younger audiences within their preferred online spaces and to meet certain subcultures where they are. And there's definitely something to that. Social listening and community engagement can be done well, and they can be majorly impactful when you do so. There's so much power in showing up in the places where your audience spends most of their time, spending time learning and engaging with them and really understanding the subculture, really understanding the desires and the interests of your audience on a human level. That I think makes total sense. And I think that, again, there are ways to do that really well. Community marketing has become very popular in the past 2 years, especially. It's been a big talking point. There's a lot of interest in developing a really strong community marketing plan, but I think a lot of people struggle with understanding how to do that well. And trend marketing, or jumping on a trend, within a moment in time, has become this kind of easy solution to community engagement, to community building. And I think at the end of it, it just ends up being this short-term solution to a bigger problem. So that's the first thing I just kind of want to have you keep in mind as you're starting to think through community engagement in general. The other thing that I think is important to consider is, like I said, the digital landscape is extremely noisy today. It's something that a lot of people do complain about often. If you're jumping on trends that don't actually make sense for your brand, but rather just to check boxes, I think you're just adding to that noise. And if your biggest aim, and I think it should be your biggest aim, is to build trust with your audience, just adding to the noise is the easiest way to not be seen as a trustworthy source. There has to be a level of intentionality with the ways that you're showing up, with the information that you're sharing, with the trends that you are deciding to jump on. Because again, I don't think that there's never a reason to post a fun meme or to jump aboard a viral moment and put your own spin on it. But I think that there needs to be a lot of intentionality and a lot of strategy baked into those decisions. If you're building a brand, you want to make sure that that brand has some integrity, and you want to make sure that the things that you're doing, the things that you're putting out there, the content that you're creating and sharing aligns with the character of your brand. I like to think of this on a human level. As humans, we have character. We've got traits that people learn to associate with us. And when we do things that don't really align with that character or that seem out of character, people kind of get a little bit confused and they're like, Lex isn't generally the type of person to show up at X or to say Y. That's really interesting. Is something going on there? And the more frequently you do things that are out of character, the more people's perception of your character starts to shift as a result. And so again, you want to make sure that you're showing up in the places that make sense for your brand and to your audience, and that you're showing up in the ways that make sense for your brand and to your audience. So one really great example of kind of this movement of trend-based marketing is the brat summer trend. Now, I'm curious, listeners, if you've heard of the concept of having a brat summer. Because I'm not sure about your algorithm, but for mine, there was about a 2 to 3 week stretch where all I saw was content related to or informed by Charli XCX's Brat. This was an album that she released a couple of months ago. That was this very fun album. I love it. I love listening to it, but it kind of took the internet by storm. There was this idea of Brands One using audio from the album to create these viral moments. And then more ubiquitously, we saw the bright green album cover with the kind of just like Arial font that reads Brat in all lowercase, taking over the internet. Kamala Harris's presidential campaign leaned hard into the concept of Brat Summer. We even saw brands like Deutsche Bank posting a call for analysts saying that they were looking for a brat in finance. using, again, the Brat album cover green with that Arial font. And it started to get me thinking, should brands be Brat? Should brands jump on trends like these? And I'll use the example of Deutsche Bank. Do I want my bank to be trendy? Do I want my bank to be quote unquote Brat? My instant gut feeling there is no. And yes, Deutsche Bank probably got a ton of engagement on this post, but it was met with various reactions. Some praising them for, being very culturally adept, and others saying that, this move was cringe and that it kind of missed the point. And I tend to lean more on that side of things. And again, when it comes to building trust and being seen as a voice of authority, as, a fixture of authority, to me, doing these kind of short-term actions that can damage your brand equity and your brand's character, again, it feels like you're missing the point. And I think Deutsche Bank missed the point here. That's why this ubiquitous trend, this very pervasive trend, at least how I had perceived it, it was really surprising to me when I started to dive in and do some more research. YouGov did a survey of 3,200 consumers at the peak of Brat Summer and found that only 11% of respondents were aware of and understood the term. Wow. This is a perfect example of the echo chamber that many of us who are very online can find ourselves in. And it's a really good reminder that you cannot assume anything. This is why understanding your audience is so key. We say this so often in marketing, but I think that there is so much room for recruiters to really lean into this mentality as well. Understanding your audience informs so much of your strategy, and understanding how you want to be perceived by your audience and starting to make strategic steps in that direction will help cultivate a brand presence, an individual presence that sets you up well for the future. So I'll kind of use this example. LinkedIn recently released their Future of Recruiting report. And one thing that we at Loxo found especially interesting was the fact that recruitment is expected to become a lot more cross-functional in the future. Talent acquisition leaders have made a strong effort to ensure that their teams are able to quickly adapt to changes in the labor market and their organization's goals. Successful recruiters in the future are going to be the ones who are able to pivot from one industry to the next and be prepared to apply their skills to other parts of the business, scaling up in certain areas and scaling down on others based off of market shifts, based off of, industries that are surging at various points in time, etc. I feel like this is a really interesting challenge because understanding your audience becomes a bit more complicated as that audience grows. The more niche down you are, the more you can kind of make these strategic calls based off of understanding that subset or that subculture really, really well. But I think that the most powerful reminder here is the fact that you can never make assumptions. Research and really understanding your audience is a really critical part of your outreach strategy. It's a really critical part of your business development strategy. Anytime you're looking to make a splash or to differentiate yourself and appear in a certain place and stand out in a certain place, especially a place that's very crowded and very noisy, you need to be very strategic and intentional about that. We talk a lot about the use cases for generative AI on this podcast and at Loxo in general. And I think that this is such a strong driver of the fact that the more time that you can free up to focus on strategy, the more time that you can focus on competitive research and customer research and candidate research and really understanding what is working today, the better off you will be and the better off you'll be able to position yourself against competitors. And I think that this is an area of opportunity that a lot of recruiters haven't previously been able to dedicate the time to, but now as we start to move in this direction of offloading some of these more manual, mundane, menial tasks to AI, we start to be able to free up the space for this strategy that allows you to position yourself as a strategic partner, And that allows you to think 3 steps ahead, even as the market is shifting dramatically, much more rapidly than it ever has before. I'll leave you with this. Hacking your way to a relationship is generally not the best long-term strategy. And starting to think about long tail activities that can ladder up and positioning yourself as a strategic partner by upskilling in certain areas is a much better use of your time than throwing a post on social media that just jumps on whatever the latest trend is. Brand equity is a thing, it is real. And the more that you work to establish a really solid brand, the more you should be concerned about protecting the integrity of that brand. So, trends are fun and they can be navigated and jumped on in a really smart and strategic way that does demonstrate a knowledge of your audience. But when not done well, they have the opportunity to damage your brand's reputation in a way that I think we need to take very seriously. So, as a brand marketer who loves a good trend, who loves having a good laugh at a meme, a well done meme on LinkedIn, I think that this is an area where we need to just keep the conversation going and understand that it's hard to stand out. It's hard to develop a relationship, a 1 to 1,000 relationship, but we need to start thinking about this strategically and in a way that aligns with our greater goals, not as something that is separate or distinct from those greater goals. So, with that being said, Becoming a Hiring Machine is a production of Loxo. If you liked this episode and aren't sure where to go next, there is a link to a similar one in our show notes or the description of your favorite podcast streaming platform, as well as on our website at loxo.co/podcasts. Full video episodes are available on YouTube as well as on our website. If you're one of those people who likes watching your podcast rather than listening to them, I'm one of those people. If you have a specific question or are looking for advice, you can also send us an email at podcast@loxo.co. We love hearing from listeners, and often listener questions can inform which episodes we end up putting out in the future. So we'd love to hear from you. It's not just lip service. We genuinely would love to hear from you. If you've got thoughts or pushback, please share it with us. Lastly, if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to leave us a quick rating in your podcast streaming platform. It only takes 3 seconds and it will help other recruiters like you find us. Okay, guys, thanks so much. That was the show. This was a Tactical Tuesday episode with me, Lex Winship. And until next time,